Hey, how's it going? Jonathan Johnson from the Johnson firm right here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm with Cooper Fournet. He's a personal injury attorney here at the Johnson firm. And today we're going to provide you a little bit more information on personal injury cases, which is this man's forte. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is damages. And that's a term that's, I guess, term of art that's used in PI cases. But what it means is the recovery, the amount of money that a personal injury case is worth and how that is determined. And let me say off the bat, and we say this when we talk to juries, when we do voir dire, the law has no other way to compensate someone and make someone whole than with dollars. It sometimes does not, in death cases, it doesn't bring someone back to life. It does not replace that hole that is missing. If you've been permanently disabled, it's not bringing you back to full health. But the law has no other way to do this except to say, all right, based on what you went through, this is that dollar amount. And what we want to explain is how we get there. What goes into that? What are the factors that determine that? So with that kind of lead in, why don't you tell us a little bit about damages in personal injury cases?
Sure. So there's two basic types of damages. There's special damages and general damages. Special damages, I call them specific damages. It's really things that are easy to prove. Things like medical bills or lost wages, things that you can take a document and say, this is how much I owe that doctor. General damages are a little bit harder to prove. It's more things that are like pain and suffering. It's harder to put a dollar amount. It's more specific to a client. But generally speaking, that's the kind of things that you'll see at the end of a case on a verdict sheet.
Okay.
It's general damages and special damages.
So if I've been in a car wreck or a workplace injury, something like that, and it's the fault of someone else. Okay, I come see an attorney, and I'm sitting in your office, and we're somewhere through the case. And I'm saying, all right, I've been treating for so many months, and I've got this many medical bills. What's my case worth? How are you answering that question? One, and kind of tell the people just those factors that go into that.
Sure. Special damage is relatively easy. You're looking at the medical bills, but sometimes you have cases where you're trying to resolve the case or going to trial at a time where the client is still treating. Mm-hmm. So in those cases, our job is to document those future medical bills that are going to come down the road. Same thing in a lost wage situation. Usually we're coordinating with the client's employer to figure out how much time they miss from work. But if it's something where someone cannot work anymore, then we're getting the right experts in place to figure out the valuation for their future lost wages. Yeah. For general damages, it's unique to each case, right? Someone with a relatively minor neck injury, if they can't work and do their job anymore, that's going to be a significant amount of pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. Someone who has a special job that they can't do because of their injury, even if the injury is relatively minor, is going to be a significant case, Right. But generally the things that we're looking at are how long did someone deal with this incident? Typically,
how long are they going to be?
How long are they going to? Typically, the shorter duration of an injury, the lower amount. The longer that someone's going to have to deal with an injury, the larger amount. But then also when we've tried cases and talked to jurors, what they really want to know is like, what was this person's life like before this incident, before this injury, compared to what it was after?
Yeah.
So they're not really looking at, how severe an injury was, but just really how did it affect this particular
what was the
person? Yeah, what was the impact? And so that's when I have a client, that's really what I want to know. I'm not too concerned about, is this a surgery? Is this not a surgery? I want to know how it affected your life because, like I said, even relatively minor injuries, depending on someone's circumstances, can have a drastic and severe effect. And that's the eternal battle that we get into the insurance companies is they're like, this person only had, $2,000 in medical bills. And I'm like, yeah, but it's an 86-year-old who now can't take care of her adult son. You just really have to understand your client to be able to articulate their damages appropriately.
So what I'm hearing when you say all of that is it's really important to have someone with this type of specific experience advising you through that so that you make good decisions. You're saying it's case specific. What case specific means is I'm looking at this case, this client, this person, I'm seeing how this affected their lives. And then I'm going in with the wealth of experience that I have, say, all right, what is that case worth? How that's informing you, and that's helping you represent them in the best way that you can.
Right.
So it's not a just plug and play math formula when we're talking about these general damages. You said something about experts, and I've always found this to be one of the more interesting parts of personal injury work is when someone's going to have ongoing future care. We know that the doctors say, hey, look, yes, they're receiving injections right now, but they're going to need injections quarterly for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. They may need a future back surgery, or they may need some future intervention going forward. You work with an expert to kind of put together what we call a life care plan.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I always find that to be really interesting.
Yeah, the life care planners are a specific type of expert that coordinates with the doctors, coordinates with the client to see what kind of future treatment the doctors are recommending, and then put dollar amounts to that treatment. But even further than that, like if you settle a case today in 2025 that accounts for a surgery that might happen 10 years later, mm-hmm. There's inflation, there's changes in the value of the dollars, changes in the cost of procedures. There's other experts that you need to hire, an economist specifically, to make sure that the amount of money that you're setting aside today in 2025 is going to be sufficient for that surgery that may not occur until 2035 or something like that. So it's challenging, but there are very, great experts that are great at what they do that we work with to make sure that we're accounting for all those future costs and making sure we're accounting for them accurately as well.
Yeah, and that's a pitfall that someone could be going through even if they have an attorney and they're not, with someone that has that type of experience of understanding, hey, look, sure, I'm getting you paid for the medical treatment that you've gotten. Okay. I'm getting your attorney's fees paid and all your expenses paid, and then I'm putting this much money in your pocket. Well, none of that matters if you're going to then have to turn around and in the next 5 years spend that plus a whole lot more just to maintain your lifestyle of being well, like, injections or surgery or something like that. And if an attorney's not up on that and understands the implications of that and work with these experts that you're talking about, then their case could settle for a whole lot less than what they should. Mm-hmm. And in the end, that's not a full recovery.
Right. And even further, like if your attorney is not asking you, like, what do you like to do? How has your life changed? Like, that's a huge red flag that you don't have the right person in your corner. Because if your attorney's trying to look at your case and value it just based on how many times did you go to the physical therapist, or how many injections that you did, or the dollar amount of your medical bills, they're not. They're missing the forest for the trees.
They're missing that key component.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, your case is worth what a jury would award, and the juries want to know more about how did this affect someone's life, more so than how much medical bills are we dealing with here.
Right.
It's a big component of it, but for me, what gives me value in my life and my practice is understanding a client's life, knowing what they like to do before an accident, knowing how that's changed, and articulating that to a jury or an insurance attorney or adjuster.
If someone is injured and they're not going to be able to go back to work, are there lost future wages, that lost income that they would have made? Is that recoverable?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that, again, something you have to work with an expert to kind of determine, all right, well, they were making, $45,000 a year and they're not going to be able to do that anymore. And they had they would have been able to work for another 25 years and now they can't. And all of that gets computed by these experts, comes out, and you're trying to recover all of that for those clients.
Correct. Yeah. Vocational experts have access to great data and tables that show someone's work life expectancy, their life expectancy. They're taking into account, are there other jobs that they can do to offset some of those lost wages that they're having? But it's pretty amazing, some of the stuff that they can really pinpoint.
Yeah. I mean, that's again, like I said, I'm kind of I graduated in accounting before I went to law school. I'm kind of a little math nerd. So anytime I see those calculations and all of those things, I just find it really interesting. And a lot of times those numbers are, I mean, they can get large because we all know how much medical cost is. And so when you're saying, all right, well, now we're going to compute future medical costs and we're going to add an inflation component. We all know how much it's gone up over time. And then they've lost all of this income. And then you start putting those things together. That's how these cases that, someone says, oh, I was just in a car wreck and my neck hurts, but I don't know, I'm not able to do the same. It's how something that maybe you don't know is incredibly significant at the time that it happens becomes something incredibly significant.
Yeah. Especially young folks, you see young folks that maybe early in their careers and maybe their salary is not as good as it's going to be. But when you extrapolate that over their work life expectancy, the numbers can be really powerful.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times I think people kind of overlook that when they're evaluating an injury claim.
So the question you get of, and I know people love this, is like, how much is my case worth? Well, it depends. And a lot goes into it. I know people want just a hard and fast answer. The answer is this video. This answer is all of these things go into it. And you need an experienced person that has the expertise to go in and say, all right, I know which one of these drivers exist in your case, and I know how to apply them, and I know who to work with so that I know I can give you a confident answer. And hey, this is your case's value. And this is how you can start kind of planning your future of what the next step looks like if we can get this case and get the recovery that the client deserves.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And it takes a career of experience to really be able to pinpoint that for a particular case.
Okay. Well, thanks for checking us out today. Again, Jonathan Johnson, Cooper Fournet, right here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, with the Johnson firm. Personal injury attorney that can handle anything that you have in the injury realm. Like he said, with that expertise and that compassion that is so important to making sure that you have a full recovery in your cases. Not just get back on the road with your vehicle, not just get some medical treatment, but to make that complete, that full recovery that we talk about. Hey, we appreciate you watching that video. If you have other questions about other legal topics, check out our website, johnsonfirmla.com, or our YouTube page. We put out material all of the time in the areas of family law, personal injury, and criminal defense. We really appreciate you checking us out. Thanks so much.